It's been a busy week here in the Inland Northwest, so let's get you caught up with the KREM 2 News Week in Review. I'm Cody Proctor. Thanks for watching. Over the next half hour, we'll take a look at some of the news you might have missed from the past week here in the Inland Northwest. Let's get started with one of the week's biggest stories.
This plea hearing in the Moscow murder case caught us all by surprise. Even when we learned Brian Coberger was expected to enter a guilty plea, we really didn't know what to expect in Ada County Court today. Ultimately, he admitted to killing the 4 University of Idaho students. A courtroom on edge, anticipating Brian Coberger's admission of guilt for the murder of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Coberger sat before the Ada County judge and the students' families, pleading guilty to all charges against him. 1 count of burglary and 4 counts of murder.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonsalves, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice of forethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
The Latah County prosecutor summarized the evidence the state would have presented in trial, including several new details about the night of the crime in November 2022.
The defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked.
The prosecutor says Coberger went straight to the 3rd floor bedroom of the King Road home, confronting Maddie and Kaylee. He says that's where the knife sheath with Coberger's DNA was left behind. The murder weapon still hasn't been found.
Mr. Coberger entered the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill.
The state says he didn't go home right away, but once he did, they found this evidence on his phone.
He took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up.
The judge accepted Coberger's guilty plea. He now faces a life sentence in prison. The judge will rule on his punishment at the sentencing hearing set for July 23rd. That is when the families get to share their impact statements. Attorneys are confident that hearing will conclude the same day. In the courtroom this morning, I sat right behind Coberger's family. I saw his father a few times wipe his eyes and otherwise holding his wife in his arms. When I looked across the courtroom, the victims' families kept their focus straight forward, as though they were letting the guilty pleas set in and processing what was happening in that hearing. Reporting in Boise, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
It was a move that seemingly shocked just about everyone.
I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon and had no inkling of it beforehand.
There, in black and white, Brian Coberger signed, admitting his guilt to the 4 murders, about a month before he was set to stand trial. While the agreement took many by surprise, criminal defense attorney Dave Leroy says it makes legal sense.
The alternative theory of perpetrators collapsing last week, it was predictable that if there was to be a plea, it would be right now.
The defense has tried and failed for months to remove the death penalty option and to suppress evidence like DNA.
So in a sense, it was surprising, but in a sense, it was exactly what could have happened at exactly the only moment that it could have happened. As the evidence became more mounting.
Leroy says a defense attorney's top objective in a capital case is to avoid the death penalty. So he says this outcome is somewhat of a victory for the defense.
And it certainly is understandable from a public safety point of view, where this man will be locked up for the rest of his life.
Today, people made their way across the Vandal Healing Garden, paying respect to the 4 students in light of this update. Flowers started arriving at the Healing Garden, tokens of respect and remembrance, paying tribute to Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, and Kaylee Gonzalez. People like Zena Hartung are still processing all the anguish and uncertainty they say has been in the community ever since the 4 U of I students were murdered.
These 4 were lost in a heinous crime that shook the entire community. We were all felt violated.
The garden is a place where people can come to grieve and where healing can grow.
We hope we'll be able to provide for our Vandals and others that place to go to find a sense of peace.
Jody Walker with the University of Idaho says the plea deal reached doesn't mean the end of healing.
We'll certainly never forget our 4 students who were taken from us.
And the focus remains for the university on the lives lost.
They forever have a spot at the University of Idaho.
Spot on campus and a spot in the hearts of students and Moscow neighbors like Hartung.
The university has been conscious and conscientious, I believe, in building this wonderful memorial.
Everyone we've spoken with out here has mixed reactions about the plea deal, but all can agree what's most important is remembering the lives no longer with us. In Moscow, Connor McAvoy, KREM 2 News.
As we go to break, here's a check of your weekend forecast. Welcome back to the KREM 2 News Week in Review. Each weekend, we walk you through headlines for the past week in the Inland Northwest.
The Coeur d'Alene, Idaho community lined the streets to support their local fire department after the horrific shooting that left 2 firefighters dead.
These are our neighbors and our sons and our brothers and our friends.
Those firefighters have now been identified as 42-year-old Battalion Chief Frank Harwood and 52-year-old Battalion Chief John Morrison. Firehouse engineer Dave Tisdall was also critically injured in what police are calling an ambush. They say 20-year-old Wes Rowley set the fire to lure first responders up Canfield Mountain, had contact and a brief discussion with the crews, and then started shooting over several hours, at one point shooting at authorities from within a tree.
Law enforcement, right now, there's an active shooter zone. Everybody shot up here. Law enforcement, code 3 now up here.
Investigators say it appears Rowley shot and killed himself during the exchange. They are now poring over his social media in search of a possible motive, but say at one point he had aspirations of becoming a firefighter himself. Rowley's family released a statement saying, "Our hearts and spirits are broken for the lost and hurting, and for our own loss as well." His former roommate is left in shock.
I can't believe what he did. I mean, that is an absolutely disgusting thing to do.
Authorities say the suspect used a flint starter to ignite the blaze, which is still burning in the steep terrain. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News.
Smoke was still rising from Canfield Mountain in the morning, some 40 miles north. A family was waking up to the unthinkable.
And a little bit of shock about the whole thing.
A shockwave hit Sandpoint early Monday.
I woke up to a phone call this morning from my brother, and he was like, "Dude, you're not gonna believe this." I said, "What?" And he said, "Your roommate's name was Wes Raleigh, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he sent me the picture of him, and I read the news, and I just Honestly, I was just freaking out really bad.
TJ Franks says he met Wes Rowley through the tree service industry. He tells me the 20-year-old was living out of his van when he moved into Frank's apartment.
My mom was freaking out. My whole family met him, and they've talked to him, and it's scary because I don't know, he could have flipped at any time.
Franks couldn't recall any conversations that may have hinted at a motive, which is still under investigation.
I mean, that is an absolutely disgusting thing to do. You know, my heart goes out to those firefighters' families because I respect law enforcement and firefighters especially. That it hurts my heart, but it also scares the crap out of me because he lived in my home under my roof.
And that's what he keeps going back to.
Never thought we would see something like this happen, especially with somebody that we know. It's really heartbreaking and scary.
Coeur d'Alene's fire chief calls this the absolute darkest days as an entire community wraps its head around the unthinkable. Tonight we have learned Coeur d'Alene Fire Battalion Chief John Morrison, Kootenai County Battalion Chief Frank Harwood were the two firefighters killed in Sunday's shooting, and Dave Tisdale, an engineer with the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, remains in critical condition at Kootenai Hospital. We heard a statement from his wife read by Chief Tom Greif of the city of Coeur d'Alene, who said that they thank everyone for the support they are surrounding Tisdale at this time in the hospital. He's had 2 successful surgeries and has been able to open his eyes, but he remains in critical condition. Now, the best way that you can donate to support these families and those firefighters who are still battling the blaze on Canfield Mountain is to donate through the Red and Blue Foundation. They are accepting donations of food and money at anchored coffee locations around the region, as well as any First Interstate Bank location. You can just mention the Canfield incident to make your donations, and that money will go directly to those 3 firefighter families.
We saw smoke showing. We went in like we do all the time and attacked the fire, and then unfortunately we got attacked.
Tonight, the chiefs of Kootenai County and Coeur d'Alene's fire departments say they are reviewing their policies and procedures, but say that on the human side, any firefighter who is dispatched after this will go into it with a different mindset. They tell us that they have also had offers from law enforcement agencies, including Idaho State Police, that they will co-respond to any fire calls. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
Many attending this week's City Council meeting here at the Coeur d'Alene Public Library are still in shock at what happened on Canfield Mountain.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome.
It was a somber start to Tuesday night's Coeur d'Alene City Council meeting.
I'd like for us to have a moment of silence.
The reason? A topic nowhere to be found on the agenda, but on everyone's mind. 2 North Idaho firefighters, Battalion Chiefs Frank Harwood and John Morrison, murdered in what investigators call an ambush while reporting to a brush fire on Canfield Mountain Sunday afternoon. Another firefighter, Coeur d'Alene fire engineer David Tisdale, remains in critical condition at Kootenai Health. The deadly attack drew a huge response from the region's law enforcement and first responders, including the volunteer fire department, East Side Fire District.
Our department sent our ambulance into town to help with the call volume.
Dave Briette's a firefighter and chaplain with East Side Fire. He says he was sent to the fire station near Canfield Mountain to comfort fellow firefighters who were on the mountain at the time of the shooting and worried for their lives. Briette says many of the unknown questions at the time were ones he was asking himself.
Are you safe when you go? You know, is somebody out there waiting for you, right? And does my family know where I'm at? Do they know I'm safe?
Briette, just 2 days after the tragedy, opened Coeur d'Alene's City Council meeting with both a moment of silence and a prayer for safety for first responders and the North Idaho community. He says going forward, he's emphasizing the importance of mental health for those putting their lives on the line.
There's no words to articulate what we're going through, what you're experiencing. You really can't say a whole lot to anybody except being present is what's most important.
Connor McAvoy.
I want our guys and gals to know they're not alone.
KREM 2 News.
Thanks for joining KREM 2 News this weekend. I'm Cody Proctor. Right now, we're taking a look back at some of the news stories from the past week.
The issue of violence when it comes to firefighters and EMS responders isn't a new issue. It's something that the Center for Firefighter Injury and Safety, also known as FIRST, has been studying for over a decade. There's over 1 million U.S. firefighters, and 67% of those are volunteers. Studies show that verbal violence is the most prevalent form rather than physical. When firefighters and first responders arrive to a scene, FIRST says they aren't always thinking about themselves or their safety, but instead helping others. If a house is on fire, they're worried about putting that fire out rather than thinking the incident will turn to violence against them. FIRST also says that time for training for violent events isn't prioritized. Firefighters and EMS responders are spread thin and don't have time to prepare themselves or their families for a violent attack.
We're very familiar with that. These types of events where there's an arson intentionally and set to lure firefighters to the scene, that doesn't happen often. And that's why, when things don't happen often, they become very hard to predict. But that's still our job at the FIRST Center, is thinking about, on every run, the potential that it could turn violent, whether it's a fire run or an EMS run.
FIRST says they are encouraging firefighters to take a moment for rest and recovery, prioritizing their mental health in the midst of the job. They use something called a SAVER Systems Level Checklist, which gives training courses for firefighters to learn how to prioritize rest and recovery and protecting themselves while working to serve others. And I do want to note, FIRST tells me that this is a very scary time for firefighters as well as EMS responders, not just for them, but also for their families who now are worrying about them having a violent attack while they're doing their job. In North Idaho, Abby Wilt, KREM 2 News.
Welcome back to the KREM 2 News, a week in review. We hope you're having a great weekend. Let's get back to one more story you might have missed this past week.
The first thing that everybody does, I'm talking 100% of the time, first thing they do is they just look around and they, oh, I remember, and then they tell you a story of the last movie they saw, or they tell you about something that they did here after hours party or whatever. I'm Larry Hernandez, owner of Village Cinema. A lot of people tell me the first movie or the last movie that they saw here, and it's really fun because everyone's just reliving it. And then they want to be back here again.
It was always fun to go to the theater, and it was a small community theater.
I'm Phil Hansen.
And I'm Linda Hansen. It was just a delight to walk into the theater and not have to pay an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember the movies we went to. I know that we brought our sons here to watch shows.
One adult. I guess the last 11 years, I've looked inside those doors because I remember when it was open and I was just like, I wonder what it would take. I wonder if somebody's going to do it. And I was tired of the bar scene. It wasn't fun. And then it hit me, there's nothing to do here except for go to the bar and go to the casino. And if you're under 18, there's really nothing else much to do. So that night I went home and I wrote some stuff down and I made a business name and started a business plan. 2 months later, I signed the lease. We've got Street Fighter 2, NBA Jam, we got Donkey Kong and Pac-Man. It's really cool because whenever people come and see it, maybe they didn't like the idea of it, but when they see Night of the Living Dead, they start laughing at different parts and jumping different parts, and that's what it's all about. It's all about people coming together. All the parents that used to come here and bring their kids are now adults, and these kids have kids, and that's what they want to do. They want to bring their kids back here where they used to go.
Keep it here for more news and weather updates throughout the weekend. And don't forget, you can watch our latest newscasts anytime on your schedule on KREM 2 Plus. Download and watch right now for free. I'm Cody Proctor. Thank you for watching the KREM 2 News Week in Review.